Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we continue our 32 for 32 series with a look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You do not need me to tell you just how successful their 2020 to 2021 season was. Super Bowl champs beat the Washington football team, the Saints, the Packers, and most convincingly, the Kansas City Chiefs. Wasn't always smooth. I mean, there were some parts throughout the year we wondered if Tom Brady would truly mesh with these receivers ever. Spoiler alert, he did just fine. Defense certainly got better as the year went on as well. With that said, Tom Brady is back. There's still plenty of talent around the roster, and we got the next season to look forward to. So Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, they're all back. They're trying to win it again. And I have a very, very special guest on today to help us figure out just what they might need to do to try to win things again in 2021. He covers the Buccaneers for The Athletic. He is co-author of Tampa Bay, which is a great name, by the way. Greg Auman, who you can follow on Twitter at Greg Auman. That's Auman. Greg, man, got Super Bowl championship, man. Offseason must be treating you well right now.
Yeah, no, it's a fun time of year to be busy. Most of the time, January is not always a busy month in Tampa. Last couple of years, so it's been fun and still kind of enjoying it. And things will get busy here in a hurry with free agency coming up.
100%. We are recording this on March 1st, so it was the J.J. Watt news day. Also got Alex Smith getting released. Things are coming up fast, so apologies by the time this gets out. There's a little bit extra news, but again, March 1st, and we'll do the best we can to get you prepared for the offseason. So, Greg, why don't you start things off with your top 3 team needs for the Buccaneers ahead of this offseason?
Yeah, it's like we won't really know until free agency comes and goes. If you assume that they're able to kind of keep the biggest of their free agents, they've got a ton of impact free agents that they could be in a position to lose. Chris Godwin and Levante David and Shaq Barrett and Ndamukong Suh and Rob Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown. Whoever of those groups leaves, obviously leaves a hole behind. But if they don't, they'll be in a really nice position where they can kind of draft as they please. There's not a glaring need like there was a tackle last year. So I think of their top positional needs just in terms of long-term. Starts at outside linebacker where they just have very little depth and very little young developmental players to go behind Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. So I'll start there. I'll go to the defensive line where, again, they're just getting old. Ndamukong Suh's 34. They've got some other key free agents that are backups. So it's a chance to get younger there as well. And then third is tough. I mean, there's positions that they're really strong, but are going to get expensive in a hurry. So you might even go cornerback, where they're going to have to pay 3 guys in the next 2 years. And they kind of need to have backup plans in place where they're not just going to a rookie in a year or two when they have to find replacements for these expensive young cornerbacks.
It's funny because it's particularly in the front seven, like they kind of already had this, quote unquote problem last year, and they just re-signed a lot of these guys to 1-year deals. Right. They're bringing back Ndamukong Suh on his latest, kind of mercenary contract. He's been going around the league, just finding the biggest deal, and it worked out just fine. So again, yeah, like you said, by the end of free agency, we'll know a lot more about what they need to look at going to the draft. But sticking with that front seven, because you brought up Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Ndamukong Suh, all these guys are free agents. We got Devin White, JPP. There's still some studs there on the defensive line and front seven, even if they leave. Do you see them still prioritizing someone like Davis and like Barrett, who, again, great players, but when you already got to pay some other dudes elsewhere, maybe you could see them walking elsewhere for more money?
Yeah, they like Carlton Davis a lot. He's going to get a year from now, he'll be their premier free agent. Tom Brady might be as well, but of their young guys, he'll be the big expensive one to get. And he might be, if you think about where the corner market is going, he might be a $20 million a year corner a year from now. The nice thing is that he's been ridiculously inexpensive up to this point. So again, they're going to have to do the same thing with Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting to a lesser extent in 23. But yeah, I think their goal is to keep this group intact. It just gets a lot trickier because the guys that they have to re-sign on defense are getting younger, and you're paying them on the way up and not on the way down, and that's usually more expensive.
Yeah, we'll see how things work out. Right, not only the Jets and Falcons have fewer $20-21 devoted to the safety and cornerback rooms, so get all those guys back. I'm sure we'll be talking about anyone's idea of a top 10 defense again, but we'll see how that plays out. Want to flip over to receiver because you mentioned this briefly. Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, even if you want to loop the tight ends in there with Rob Gronkowski. A lot of moving parts. Godwin, let's focus on him because I think if we just have to look at future just potential ability to continue being a great player, the guy's still young and he has seemingly the best years of his career still ahead. How confident are you that the Buccaneers can figure out a way how to get Chris Godwin back in Tampa Bay in 2021?
For 1 year, I think it's fine. They can just franchise him. It's one of those where he's getting a raise from $2 million to $16 million in 1 year. But if he was on the open market, I think he's probably close to a $20 million receiver, the way those guys are getting paid. So he's only 25. He's still very much ascending. So I think maybe one more year you're able to keep him. That they can't really afford to pay him and Mike Evans at full market value, but they can kind of pull it off as a Band-Aid, as a 1-year fix to franchise him, and then probably see him take a lot of money to be somebody's number one a year from now.
And where do you see Antonio Brown's fit into this picture? Because, okay, maybe he didn't look like the same world-beaten talent that we saw basically take over the league in Pittsburgh for all those years, but he came in. For all we know, we didn't hear, a ton of off-the-field problems that everyone was kind of worried about. Bruce Arians said the second he stopped being a model citizen, he would be off the team. He was on the team. So as far as we know, he was doing what he was asked. Do you think AB will be back with the Buccaneers, or did he do enough in that year to maybe go get a bigger contract elsewhere with, might be a little bit, closer to what his talents are these days?
Yeah, I think the whole thing with AB is if he wants to get paid, and if he's in a position to get paid, I think he's probably going to get paid more elsewhere, because the Bucs have, if they're keeping Godwin, they'll have really good depth at receiver. Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson are two really good up-and-coming receivers, so you don't want to pay to stifle them. I'm sure they're a better team with Antonio Brown at receiver. They got him kind of cheap this year. It was like, even with the Super, I think he got $750,000 for winning the Super Bowl, was still only like a $2 million receiver, which is a great deal for somebody of his caliber. If he's okay being that guy again, he can chase another Super Bowl. Now, if he wants to go get 2 years and $12 million from somebody who sees a bigger role for him, he can do that. It's just you don't know how he's going to be received in that new city, in that new team. I think he knows he has a coach and a quarterback that believe in him here in Tampa. Like you said, he's behaved very well. He's done and said all the right things since he's been here. So again, I think if he came at the right price, they'd love to have him back, but I don't think they can afford to give him double or triple what he made this past season.
Yeah, it's probably going to be up to AB whether or not he wants to come to Tampa or not, because then again, should be able to get more money elsewhere. But, as maybe at this point in his career, other things are more important. So again, those top three team needs from Greg: offensive linebacker, defensive line, and cornerback. We got receiver there. Again, there's a lot of just moving parts right now with all these kind of free agents, in limbo. So we will know a lot more here come, halfway through the month of March, when we know what guys are staying, what guys are going. I want to move on now to some 2021 workload related questions. Again, we're recording this on March 1st. Greg cannot predict the future, but we'll ask him to try his best with everything we know right now. I want to stick on those auxiliary receivers for a second, because you brought up Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller. These guys truly made some great plays, both of them, especially Scotty, throughout the year, as a field stretcher. But even Tyler, some of the things he did, I think proving he's more than a slot receiver. Like, I think we have reason to be optimistic on both guys. I know, maybe having Godwin and AB back could stifle their development, but out of those two, Tyler versus Scotty, which one are you higher on in terms of just their long-term future with the Buccaneers?
I think Tyler Johnson can be a really special receiver. He reminds me a lot of what Chris Godwin was as a rookie. Didn't have a lot of catches, didn't play a big role, but really impressed. Has made some spectacular catches when he's had the ball thrown his way. He's somebody they trusted in some really big game situations. I got to cover the Outback Bowl last year, where he had just an absolute amazing final college game. Had like 200 yards. Probably the best touchdown I saw in 2020 was a back of the end zone, jumping, leaping, toe tap catch he made. So I think he's got a world of potential ahead of him. I think Scotty Miller has done great to do what he did. He was their leading receiver in receiving yards halfway through the year last year. I think it's probably where he fits in. I think he's probably, a really good complementary deep threat number 3 type receiver. And he's got 2 more years in his rookie contract, can really try and build on what he's done already.
He was making some headlines, before and after the Super Bowl, saying how he thinks he's the fastest guy in the league. I don't want to ask that question. That's, insulting, Tyreek Hill and some other guys. Maybe not insulting. I don't know. I've never seen him race. But just from you, Greg, you've been covering this team, for decades. Is Scotty Miller the fastest wide receiver you've seen suit up for Tampa Bay, we'll say, since 2000?
I think the important thing is that Scotty thinks he is. And he absolutely has. If you can't be a receiver or a corner in this league unless you have all-world confidence. What I like about Scotty is that he doesn't care who tells him they're faster. He'll line up and he'll run with them. And again, if you look in the playoffs, he didn't make a ton of plays in the playoffs, but he got behind a defender in the last play of the half in Green Bay, and it was just a crushing touchdown. That touchdown really created some separation there. In terms of, guys that can get open and get behind people, he's not going to have a 200-yard quarter like Tyreek Hill had against the Bucs. But again, I think the confidence is what you see when he's like, Tyreek Hill, no, I can be faster than that guy, no problem. And even after the fact, when it kind of blew up and you might have motivated the Chiefs' biggest weapon, he's like, no, I still think I'm faster.
I love the confidence, man. I hate when some of these wide receivers, they get called, just divas and all this because they want the ball more. Like, I want a wide receiver that wants the ball to be thrown to him, and I don't mind if the field stretcher thinks he's the fastest guy in the league. Why not keep working, Scotty? Maybe you'll get there one day. Now, the one wide receiver we haven't mentioned, the alpha, the number one, Mr. Mike Evans. I mean, to me, again, I didn't have the insider info, but seemed like he was banged up all season long, almost from like week 2 on. That Chargers game, I think, might have been the first time I saw him get banged up. On and off the injury report, I mean, it wasn't exactly, just I guess a mystery, but still managed to score 13 touchdowns, get over 1,000 yards. And that was with only 109 targets. I mean, that was a career low mark. We did see a bunch of games where, I mean, Evans, they would say he gets shut down, but you look at the box score and it's like, okay, this guy is really never, he can make any catch, any contested catch. I don't want to say he got shut down when he got 3 targets throughout the entire game. I see a similar argument with DK Metcalf sometimes. Need to see where Godwin and where AB settle down, but could you see Evans next year getting back more into that 140 target range if he's healthier and in year 2 of this offense with Brady?
Yeah, I mean, he had a bad ankle for most of the first half of this season that he pushed through. And then, in the playoffs, you look at that hyperextension of his knee in the last week of the season. I think people, if you watched him not able to put weight on that leg coming off the field, I don't think people thought he might play in the playoffs. So to come back and have a 100-yard game against the Redskins, to have a touchdown later on, I mean, he does have games where it's 2 1-yard touchdowns or something like that. But in terms of just Tom Brady recognizing a red zone threat and just taking full advantage of it, he did that. And again, if he's full go next year, I think you could have the same touchdowns and have, like you said, a couple more 100 yards and 30 more catches. He can do a lot more. And I think they recognize that when he's on the field, it kind of opens things up for everybody else because of the attention he draws as well.
Yeah, I'm ready for teams just to start treating him almost like a punt gunner on the goal line, like put 2 guys just right there on the line of scrimmage. Remember, prime Des Bryant got that look a few times. I mean, truly, Brady and Evans inside the 5-yard line was just like clockwork last year. Hopefully they can get him more involved in the other areas of the field as well. We know he can dominate from anywhere. He's been doing his whole career. Hopefully 2021 brings that on. Want to look at this run game because, Artist is known as Playoff Lenny. The guy did great in January. I know that apparently, in November, even early December, there were talks of maybe releasing him. Obviously, he overcame that and played most of his opportunities. With that said, I think we could all agree Ronald Jones is the better back throughout the year. Keyshawn Vaughn, maybe in year 2, will be more involved as well. So first question, do you see Fournette back with the Buccaneers next season? And if not, what kind of running back do you see them maybe replacing him with in terms of a pass catcher, 3-down stud, early plotter? Floor is yours.
Yeah, he's probably, of all those free agents, I think he's probably the one I feel like is most likely to be gone. Just because I think there are going to be other teams that see him as a workhorse number 1 back. You're seeing all kinds of projections where he gets like $8 million a year, which is great for him. I mean, he went to the Bucs on a 1-year, $2 million deal. And like you said, I mean, mid-season, week 14 with a playoff berth on the line, he's a healthy scratch for the Bucs. They dressed LaShawn McCoy ahead of him. So things worked out really well for Fournette in that Rojo broke his pinky and got COVID and hurt his quad. And Leonard Fournette just stepped up in a huge way and was playoff Lenny and went over 100 yards from scrimmage 3 times in 4 games, had a great postseason and absolutely earned every dollar he's going to get. I think if he were coming back to the Bucs, I think it would have to be on a similar type, cheap opportunity type contract. He has that chance to make a lot more now. So I think if he does get 2 years and $16 million or something like that, the Bucs will wish him well. I do think their priority will be getting a pass catching back. That's kind of what they like to do with Tom Brady. And Fournette did that fairly well. He and Ronald Jones both had some problem with drops and fumbles after catches. James White is a free agent from the Patriots. Obviously, he's a guy.
I was just about to say his name.
He got like 300 catches from Brady, 24 touchdowns. He's like it's like you would be asking someone else to try and be James White if you brought them in. So if you can get him, and I think there's reason to think it could work out. I mean, he really wasn't as big of a factor with the Patriots. He went through a rough year last year, lost dad in a car accident, and had some personal problems he dealt with off the field. But like I said, I think if he wants to go back to the guy that used him best, it's being Tom Brady's go-to pass-catching running back. So I don't think he'll be that expensive. I think he can kind of fit into that Fournette role where he complements Ronald Jones, probably is a little better as a pass catcher. Maybe not as good an overall back if you need somebody to step up and give you 25 carries. I don't know that they need him to be that. I think he can just be a 60-catch, 8-touchdown type back and be a good complement to Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I feel like in, fantasy football land, we all want those receptions all the time because it's such a cheat code, just the way and things are scored. And because Ronald Jones really struggled with that, people almost didn't appreciate how good he was just with the ball in his hands as a pure rusher throughout the season. So, I mean, James White coming in would not help us get those target totals up, but still realize that Rojo with 220, 250 touches, even if most of them are on the ground, perfectly capable of making the most of those. Last thing before we get your bold offseason takes. So, it was amazing to me with Tom Brady. Like, okay, my first concern with him going this year was, would Father Time catch up to him? Would his arm strength be gone? That was perfectly fine. You can see it from week one on. This dude can still launch the ball down the field. But the second biggest surprise for me was how efficient he was in year one in this system. I mean, we saw each of Carson Palmer, Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, 40 turnover-worthy plays in their first season with Bruce Arians. Brady had just 15 all season, including the playoffs. Again, it's almost like Mike Evans, where it's hard to say that someone can get better after a very good year. But Tom Brady, I mean, at some point, he has to get older. But with that said, year two in Arians' offense, could we see a better version of him if we can, just put aside the potential physical drop-off?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of those where, I think he's probably upset about the 12 picks he threw, the 15 interceptions he had with the playoffs. I mean, that's a high number for him. So he can definitely, as much as they cut their turnovers more than in half this year, they'll want to do it again next year. So, I think Brady, again, he's going to be hard-pressed to throw 40 touchdowns again, but all you have to do is tell Brady he can't do something, and he's got all the motivation he needs. So I think he'll be back. I'm sure they'll want to have a little bit more offensive balance and have more of a run game just to ease some of the burden on him. But as long as he stays healthy, he's going to have a great cast of talent to throw to. He should be in line for a really good season again in 21 here.
And again, like, if Godwin and AB and some of these guys leave, it's not going to be ideal, but don't sleep on Scotty, Tyler. OJ Howard may be coming back healthy. Last thing real quick with OJ Howard, do you expect him to be at full go come, training camp? We haven't heard a lot of this stuff just on his injury update.
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those where, the Bucs have to figure out something at tight end because you can't really pay 3 tight ends $6 million or more. And that's what they'd be doing to bring Gronk back, to have OJ Howard on his 5th-year option, and to have Cam Brate back. So it means probably either trading or cutting Howard or Brate just to kind of free up some salary cap room for other people. They both have been great. Howard, I thought, really had a good rapport with Brady, had some touchdowns early in the year before he got hurt. That was a big loss for them. He's a lot like Gronk in that he can run and block, catch and block, to where he's on the field. It's not really a tell whether you're running or throwing. So to have two of them, if you have Gronk and Howard on the field at the same time, I think it really does a lot to keep keep the opposing team guessing what you're doing.
Greg, fantastic stuff. Great points all around. Do you have a bold offseason take you can leave us with, whether it's a free agent signing, draft edition, or it's a 2021 workload note?
No, it's hard to do a bold take because, they're the Super Bowl champs. I'm not going to call for them to repeat because that's way too far ahead. I think they win the NFC South. I think they're hosting a playoff game, and then kind of what happens from there. It's a much easier path to the Super Bowl in Los Angeles if they want to try and do that again a year from now.
All right, I'm going to test you just a little bit. Gun to your head then. Will Chris Godwin be back with the Buccaneers in 2022?
I'll say no. Like, they'd love to have him. He's going to be a rich man. He's going to have a 10-touchdown season this fall. He's going to get like 5 years and $110 million from like the Colts or the Ravens or somebody who will absolutely feature him and make him a Pro Bowler every year.
Go get paid, Chris. And 2021 franchise tag certainly makes sense. But after that, go get that $20 million per year if someone wants to dish it out. Greg, fantastic stuff. Everyone make sure you follow Greg on Twitter at Greg Auman and check out that book, Tampa Bay. Where can they read and see your stuff throughout the offseason, Greg?
Yeah, everything I write to The Athletic at theathletic.com. Like you mentioned, I'm on Twitter at my name, Greg Auman, GregAuman. And the book, the Buccaneers Championship book, is from Triumph Books. You can get it at triumphbooks.com. Thanks very much.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Greg. And thank you everyone out there for listening to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. He's Greg. I'm Ian. Until next time, take care, everybody.